There's been a ton of information releasing about Dying Light the Beast this past week with the new Summer Games Fest trailer, which I do have a video on linked in the description below. There's also the 30-minute gameplay and several interviews and AMAs with Timon, so today I'm going to go over everything that I noticed in the 30-minute gameplay. I will have another video going over all the questions answered by Timon's AMAs and interviews coming soon. There is a lot to unpack in this 30-minute demo gameplay, so let's get right to it. The demo starts with Kyle talking to someone on the radio about the location of a facility where some of the Baron's men are posted. This reminds me of the several conversations Kyle has with Jade about Rise in the first game. The world looks much more detailed in The Beast than in Dying Light 2, which Timon did comment on during an interview where he said that they were focused more on the size of the map rather than the details in the second game, so they wanted to switch that up in The Beast. The weapons shown in this gameplay also don't have any mods on them, so I'm interested to see what those are going to look like. The only thing we do know is that you'll have to upgrade those through workbenches, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. When the parkour starts, you can see that the buildings look very similar to Dying Light 2, which is understandably concerning, and one of the reasons people feel like this is a DLC and not the full game that it is. There are a couple reasons for this though. One is that this is not a finished build of the game most likely, so things could be updated to be different on release. And two, the game is assumed to be set somewhere near Villador, which would easily explain the similar architecture if they're from the same region of the world. During the same section, you can see a tall tower in the background. At first glance, I thought this was the VNC tower from Dying Light 2, but after further inspection, this is definitely not the case. Given how much of the structure we can see, it would be impossible for the other skyscrapers in the Garrison District to not be seen. Also, you don't even see the wall that surrounds the city, so this is likely a research facility of the Baron and possibly where Kyle escapes from. One thing a lot of people have mentioned is that the animations Kyle uses are the same as Aiden's from Dying Light 2. You can see that from this bar swing and the dropkick very easily. Timon has said that the animations are being worked on, so these are likely just placeholder animations in an old build of the game. We then come across our first viral. I like that they brought back the human-like pleading that they added in Dying Light 2 to show that maybe not all of the human parts of these zombies are gone. After this, we see Kyle look at his watch and it shows the time to be 1800. This is what happened in the first game when it came to telling the time, and it was always a cool little detail. I prefer this over the time always being on the screen like in Dying Light 2. Now we finally get to see the flashlight. I know the flashlight has always been a big issue with the community in Dying Light 2, and I have seen people still talking about how it doesn't illuminate things properly and the shadows are not correct. I personally think that it may be a tad too dim, but they're also trying to go for a scarier atmosphere, just like the first game had, so we'll have to wait and see when the game is released how the flashlight will actually turn out. The next part I actually mentioned back in my trailer breakdown, but we see Kyle dropkick a zombie out of a window covered with boards. The destructibility being added to the game may be a small detail, but it adds to the immersion and something that none of the previous Techland zombie games really had a good grasp of. Then we get to the time hitting 1900 hours and the person on the radio tells Kyle to be careful of the night creeps and the volatiles as they are hard to dodge in the woods. To me, this means that there are special kinds of zombies other than the volatiles that only come out at night, and they may be more aggressive than normal zombies. Either that or this is just referring to normal zombies that just happen to be more active at night. We don't see any new looking type of zombie during the nighttime gameplay, so it's either something that's just not shown or it's the second option. The voice then tells Kyle about a safe zone nearby that he can use. These are brought back how they were in the first game, which I personally prefer. In Dying Light 2, you just walked up to a generator and turned it on, or you had to go through some parkour to climb a windmill. It was nowhere near the same or as fun as the safe houses in the first game. You had to secure it yourself by closing all the entrances, turning on the power, and killing all the zombies inside for it to become a safe zone. It was just more interesting than what you did in Dying Light 2, so I'm glad they returned to the original way for the Beast. As the day comes to a close, we see night set in and the game gets extremely dark. This is how it was in the first game, if not a little bit darker than that, and really drives up the horror aspect that didn't make it to Dying Light 2 on its release. Here's a side-by-side shot of the night with my media player at normal brightness and with 50% increased brightness. There is a massive difference and it shows that the darkness can hide quite a lot. We get to see Survivor Sense in action, which does light up the volatiles in the area but not the normal zombies. This is how it worked in both previous games if I'm not mistaken. One thing you'll notice, and Timon actually mentioned this in an interview, is that there is very little room for parkour in the woods. You'll be on foot for the most part, and your only real options are to sneak around undetected, run from everything lurking there, or fighting everything you see. I don't mind this as it makes you have to plan your path through the woods carefully so you don't get caught by all the zombies hiding there. There are tons of volatiles throughout the section, and it really brings back what night felt like in the first game. Another thing Timon mentioned in an interview is that enemies can see your flashlight and will react to it depending on different factors. You can see this when the volatile roars and Kyle turns off the flashlight to avoid being seen. Of course, he does turn it back on right afterward, but the volatile is facing away from him, so there is that. We see Kyle throw a decoy near some volatiles to distract them, but as he's running up to the safe house, you can hear them start to roar before the shutter closes. To me, this means that they can be distracted, but it won't be for long, so you should do it as far away from where you are going as possible. While clearing the safe house, we also get to see finishers being done to some of the zombies. I'm glad this was brought back from Dying Light 2. Hopefully there'll be a large variety of animations depending on the weapon you're using and the angle you're facing the zombie from. During the fight with the safe house zombies, Kyle gets overwhelmed and activates his beast mode. Unlike Dying Light 2, this will be something you can use freely throughout the game instead of scripted moments. While in this state, Kyle's attacks are stronger and he can use the moves of other zombies like the ground pound from the Demolisher. I assume there will be a beast related skill tree that allows for different attacks to be unlocked, so maybe we'll see some other types of moves when the game releases. After Kyle wakes up, we get a glimpse of what the workbench looks like. This will be the place you can upgrade and mod your weapons during the game, just like they had in the original Dead Island games. I prefer this because I feel like it adds more immersion into the lore so that Kyle isn't just doing these major upgrades while running around or having to talk to an NPC. Now we see the dynamic weather in action. The rain is just absolutely coming down, and unlike Dying Light 2, it doesn't appear to rain inside the buildings. The wind is stronger as well, which pushes the rain and plants, making things much more difficult to see. This is also where we get to see the first human melee combat. Kyle is fighting a couple of bandits near a train, and everything looks very similar to how you would fight in Dying Light 2. Again, the animations may change by the time the game is fully released, but I prefer the melee combat with humans in the second game over the first one. In Dying Light 1, from my personal experience, the human enemies would either dodge or block every single melee attack without fail, and it was extremely frustrating. This caused me to be forced to use ranged weapons in order to defeat them, so with the beast, I'm glad it seems to be more of an option again, which is really good. One small thing I want to mention is this gate right here. In the trailer we saw Kyle dropkick a zombie to bust it open, and now in this footage we see him just push it open. To me this means there's going to be many more interactive objects in the game that don't require a button press or a quick time event, which adds to the immersion. The yellow doors of the building on the left make it seem like a lot of the interiors are also going to be explorable. I just hope that areas like these are not just rehashes of the electrical stations from Dying Light 2, where they all look pretty much the same with only slight variations. The factory area shown here is actually pretty big for a single location when you look at how long it takes Kyle to get where the Baron's men are located, and that's just him going straight there. When Kyle does get to the Baron's men, you can see that they are well equipped with assault rifles and are guarding one of the entrances to the mission area. To me, this shows that you really have to think about how you approach a situation because you can easily get outnumbered. We then get to see more of the parkour, and I like that the path taken in the footage is not clearly marked, but it's something that with a little bit of looking you can figure out. Dying Light 2 had straightforward paths, which mostly involve circling buildings as you climb, so this is definitely a step in the right direction. At the top of the building, they show off some stealth. Both previous games didn't really allow for a ton of stealth gameplay when it came to humans due to the paths they take or where they're placed. I like that stealth seems to be more of an option, but this also feels a bit forced. If Kyle had taken any other route, the stealth shown would not have been possible. After the stealth, we get to see some of the gun combat, but before that you see the survivor sense being used, which shows an interesting detail. Any human enemies with guns are highlighted red, while humans with melee weapons are highlighted yellow. I like this since it allows you to tell where the biggest threats are in the area, and I don't remember this being the case in Dying Light 2, except maybe a slight difference in color for volatiles and virals, but please correct me if I'm wrong on that. When Kyle jumps down, we see the game move in slow motion. Since he's using a gun at the time, this looks to be the same ability as the parkour shot from Dying Light 2. Kyle also loots an open chest with some ammo, which to me means that ammo will be plentiful. This is coupled with the fact that Timon himself said in an interview that they want players to use everything at their disposal, but if you want to play the game as if it was an FPS, then you are welcome to do so. After battling the enemies inside, we get a cutscene with a hilarious moment where Kyle punches the scientist in the throat and steals the shotgun. This is where we also learn a little bit about the chimeras, which are also known as freaks. There's a new strain of the virus being used on them, which most likely makes them stronger and more dangerous than what we saw in previous games. He also tells Kyle about a special gas that can lure chimeras to a specific location. This reminds me of the blue gas in Dying Light 1, which was in the same locations as the freaks, and what infected Kyle and the mother from the following DLC. It actually could be the same gas, just modified over the years, since this one is red, but we'll know more once the game comes out. Once Kyle gets to the basement, we see some shotgun gameplay, and I love the way it looks. You can tell that the impact and recoil really seem to have some actual weight to them. Then Kyle finds a flamethrower on a body, and when it's used, it looks absolutely amazing. This is one of the weapons I am most excited about in the Beast. After this, Kyle grabs a gas tank and transports it to a truck. This is exactly what happened multiple times in the first 2 Dead Island games. I wasn't a fan of the driving in those games, but hopefully Techland has stepped up their driving game in the Beast. There's no confirmation right now if co-op players can ride in the back or if they all have to be inside, but we'll see that closer to release. As Kyle's running over zombies while driving, you can see that the area has enough open space to allow for vehicles to drive through, but also enough obstacles so it's not just an empty area. During this section, the truck still seems to have the sliding problem that Dead Island had, where it doesn't feel like it turns but just slides side to side. At least the car isn't traveling crazy fast almost immediately, making the problem worse, as it was the case in the original Dead Island games. Granted, this is all in the first person view, so it might be different while driving in third person. After a bit, a viral jumps on the windshield and starts trying to break it. We don't get to see much of the potential destruction the truck can take, but there is a large crack where the viral hits the windshield. In Dead Island, cracking the entire windshield happened very quickly and it had to be punched off, so I'm glad this is seemingly more sturdy. Kyle crashes the truck into the bed of another truck to fling the viral off, which also kills it. I hope there are several ways to remove a zombie from your car like this, and also that it doesn't happen as often as zombie grabs in Dying Light 2, because it would get extremely annoying very quickly. After putting the gas tank into a machine, another firefight breaks out and we see Kyle use a grenade. This is the same design as the DIY grenade in Dying Light 2, but doesn't have the multiple explosions like the artifact level of the grenade. Either this is a placeholder for the look of the grenade, or it is a lower rarity that doesn't include the extra explosions. Now we get to see our first look at one of the chimeras. This one is a demolisher, but you can tell it's a bit different since it's spikier, has almost no flesh, and looks more volatile-like. During the fight, the Chimera uses the exact same attacks as the Demolishers from Dying Light 2, which does make sense given that the Beast is set after the events of that game. It then lets out a scream similar to a howler and leaps at Kyle with a double-fisted slam. Now we start seeing zombies joining the arena due to the scream, and the Chimera uses the rock throw move, flinging zombies at Kyle and the jump attack again. Since this is most likely one of the bosses in the game, this could be seen as a phase 2 set of attacks. If that is the case, then it makes the Chimeras even more interesting since they could change tactics mid-fight once you do enough damage. Kyle then activates his beast form and is able to stagger the Chimera. He's also able to use the same slam attacks that the Chimera was using, but combines it with a super jump for more damage. He then climbs the Chimera and rips its head off with a finisher. I love the finishers seem to be added to the beast form and will probably be different depending on the enemy that you're fighting. The gameplay ends with a third-person cutscene. Since we saw several moments earlier where a cutscene was in first person, these type are probably saved for the more cinematic moments to make them feel even bigger and better, which I don't personally mind. Kyle then steals some of the Chimera's blood and injects himself with it. This could be similar to the inhibitors from Dying Light 2, and could be how you upgrade a beast skill tree using points that you get from something like this. That is all speculation though, so don't quote me on that. What part of the trailer did you like the most, and what are you hoping to see when the game releases? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe for more Dying Light the Beast info, and check out my other socials for even more content. Thanks for watching, see you next time.